Welcome back to the NW Sportscast. Unfortunately, the Washington Huskies were not able to pull off the win tonight against the Michigan Wolverines, a 34-13 loss. Drew, you're the bigger Husky fan than I am. What are your thoughts on this game? How could the Huskies have played better and won?
I mean, first of all, this was a great season, obviously. This game, going in 14-0, both teams, and a really good team had to lose this football game. Unfortunately, it was the Huskies. And my biggest takeaway, Levi, is that Michael Penix straight up did not play well. And he is the life and soul of this team. He's been playing really, really well all season long. And unfortunately, out of all the nights to miss a few balls, he did. And you can put some of the blame, actually, you can put a lot of the blame on the offensive line. They got absolutely, pushed around by that dominant Michigan Wolverines defensive line. But you can't excuse the missed throw to Adunze. That's 7 points.
Yeah.
You can't excuse that. You can't excuse, you know, a couple of missed balls down the middle to McMillan, a couple of missed reads. He had Odunze up the seam in the third quarter. He missed that one. Just he didn't play great. And I actually thought the defense played quite well outside of the first couple of drives where the Wolverines ran all over us. And this defense, down a touchdown, just kept giving the ball back to our best player in Michael Penix. And Michael Penix kept squandering opportunities. And it was bound to happen where Michigan finally broke through and pushed that one score game into a two-score game. And unfortunately, that did happen. So all around, Levi, unfortunate game for sure. The Huskies go down 13-34. Great season by the men in purple, but this kind of a tough pill to swallow as we see Penix and Adunze and all those guys enter the NFL draft.
Yeah, I agree with you, Drew. I thought Penix just flat out didn't play very well. There was a lot of throws where he should have been leading his guy, and instead he threw it behind his guy, and that allows Michigan, against teams like Stanford, ASU, Arizona, that kind of thing works. But when you're playing against Michigan, you cannot leave anything on the board. And there's a couple throws, especially there's one to Polk where I was like, you throw that a couple inches closer to him, he makes that catch. But instead, just a little bit behind him, and it allows the Michigan secondary to catch up and allows them to make the stop. The missed throw to Odunze, I don't know what he was doing there. I mean, you can't miss that. There was a couple times where he did make really good throws and he got called back from penalties. I've been seeing quite a few people on Twitter saying maybe the refs were against Washington. It looked a little bit like that, but again, it's kind of hard to blame the refs for a 21-point loss. Ultimately, yeah, just not a great game by the Huskies.
Yeah, I thought the refs did not help us out at all. Do I think that this outcome would have been different? Maybe a little bit, but I don't think the Huskies played well enough to win this football game. And you can point at the refs all you want. This was on the Huskies, and then they couldn't get it done. Unfortunately, they'll have to go back next year, play them in October for a little bit of a rematch. But man, just a really tough game overall. Quick game
Yeah.
summary. Initially, Michigan drove down the field, kind of what we thought was going to happen. Their running game kind of did happen. And early on, we didn't even talk about in our pregame, Levi. Donovan Edwards breaks away for two huge touchdown runs. He goes for only 6 carries, but 104 rushing yards. He had 17 average yards per carry. He's fast, and we could not stop him early on. And the Washington offense could not get it going. You go inside the 10, you try to respond down 7-0 to start the game, and you sputter in the final 10 yards in that first drive. Then the second drive, you don't get much happening. You know, uh, Defense plays well, and you go into the half down a touchdown, and you feel pretty good about yourselves. You're down 10-17. You're getting the ball back with all of the momentum. And what does Michael Penix do? You know,
First
the
play.
the
First
offensive line,
play.
the offensive line kind of gives up. He gets pressured, kind of floats one in there. I think it might have been tipped. And unfortunately, that ball ended up being an interception, and that completely flipped the change of that game.
Really
However,
good play, by the way, from that Michigan guy, because that
really
was,
good play. Yeah.
I mean, he barely hung on to that football. I
But
thought it was
Levi,
I thought he dropped it.
I know I did too, but Levi, and then you got to give the Washington defense credit once again.
Yeah,
When
they hung in there.
inside their own
Defense
20,
kept him in the game.
what do? They hold them to a
Hold
field
him to a
goal
field goal.
and then give it back to Penix. And I believe that was when we scored a field goal. And then we kind of have this, in the third and fourth quarter, it was kind of this back and forth of, Michigan offense sputters, then the Washington offense doesn't do well. And it just kept going back and forth. And the Washington defense consistently gave the ball back to their best player in Michael Penix Jr. And what happens? Nothing happens. And that is the main problem. And finally, Michigan breaks through that touchdown. And this game was closer than the 21 points.
Yeah.
That last touchdown didn't really affect the game in any way. This was about a 14-point football game. If you account the Roman Dunze touchdown that should have happened, I think it was closer to a 7 to 13-point margin. This score should have looked like based off of how I watched it. But, I mean, just really, really tough, Levi. Levi, how do you respond next year if you're the Huskies, losing all these key players and having to kind of bounce back from a really tough national championship game?
Well, this is going to be a very big challenge for Coach DeBoer. Me and you have both talked a lot about how great of a coach he's been. Now you're losing your top 3 receivers. You're losing your starting quarterback. You're losing 2 of your better offensive linemen. One of them is probably a first-round offensive lineman. You're also going to lose Braylon Trice, your best defensive edge rusher. You're going to lose a couple other guys from defense as well. So it's like quite a few of your stars, you're not going to have them next year.
Yeah.
And that is what the elite college football head coaches, guys like Nick Saban, have been able to do so well, is just replace talent like that. Bring in new guys, doesn't matter, because they're able to win consistently. That's what Kellen, because DeBoer has proven he can win with Michael Penix. Now he has to prove, can I win not only without Michael Penix, but without all the other stars? I think he can. I think next year, I very early prediction, but I view the Huskies as probably the 3rd or 4th best team in the Big Ten still. I think Michigan, obviously, you got to put ahead of them. I think Ohio State, Oregon, and Washington are kind of that next 3. So I still think we're going to be very competitive. I mean, it's a 12-team playoff.
Yeah.
So, there's still a solid chance we can make the playoffs. I don't think we're getting a top 4 seed like we did this year, but could I see the Huskies getting the 8th seed, the 9th seed? Absolutely. You go 9-2, 10-2, that's probably gets you the 9th seed right there. So yeah, I think the Huskies are still a viable, very dangerous team, but I'm not sure if they're going to be another 14-0 season on the way, at least not next year. Next year is going to be a kind of new guys. Drew, I want to ask you though, because, I'm not as big of a Huskies fan, especially now that I'm going to Washington State, but I am a Seahawks fan. And I watched this game and I actually was kind of happy in a weird way to watch Penix struggle a bit, because I think this actually increases the chances that he could fall to Seattle at number 16. What do you think about that? Would you still draft him at 16 after this game? I would.
Yeah, I would draft him at 16. And I think you're right. I think if he plays good here, he's probably a top 10 draft pick. I think now he's, sorry guys, my bad. I think now he's a little bit more in that, 11 through 20 range, but I'd pick him at 16. The problem you see with Penix is this is the closest thing he can find to an NFL defense and the closest thing he's played to an NFL defense his whole career. And what does he do? He doesn't play well. So it's hard I think it's going to be hard as an NFL scout to overlook this game. He played really, really good against Texas, but that Texas defense is not even close to this Wolverines defense. And was he getting pressured all night? Sure. Did he only have 1 sack despite all the pressure? Yeah, he did. I mean, he did some good things in this game, but missing wide open guys, not being on the same page as your receivers, it's definitely reason for concern. With all that being said, I think that the Seahawks still should draft him at 16 if they have the chance. He still throws it better than almost any guy I've seen. He still has elite arm talent. He was really banged up for most of that game, and I think that also affected Levi.
Yeah, credit to Michael Penix for playing through what I think was multiple injuries that he sustained. He proved that he is a leader. He
And
proved
Dylan
that he is a really he's got that dog inside of him. And while he may not be the most complete prospect, Certainly you look at guys like Drake May, Caleb Williams, obviously, probably also Jaden Daniels, excuse me, as more complete. But Michael Penix, I think his ceiling is maybe the third or fourth highest in this draft. Certainly between, I mean, JJ McCarthy might go higher in the NFL draft, but I do not think JJ McCarthy has that high of a ceiling. I don't think Bo Nix has that high of a ceiling, you know. So I think Michael Penix, I look at him and I'm like, if he reaches his full potential, he can do exactly what Tua is doing in Miami. He can do exactly what Joe Burrow has been able to do in Cincinnati, which is just be a really, really good pocket passer in an NFL era where there's not as many pure pocket passers left. Even Joe Burrow, maybe that's a bit of a stretch. I know he went to a Super Bowl, won a national championship, but I don't think Penix is really that far behind where he was at this point. And so I can totally see, if he reaches his ceiling, I think Penix can be a top 10 quarterback. I think he can be in an MVP discussion. I get that the throwing motion is weird. I get that he's a left-handed guy, and I get that he had a really good offensive line this year with the UW, and so that causes some
Didn't
concern.
look too good tonight.
They didn't look too good tonight, exactly. And yeah, he missed some throws. He also proved he is maybe the most aware pocket passer that I've seen in a long time. Like, he knows exactly when he's about to get sacked, and he gets rid of the football. And as a Seahawks fan who has watched Russell Wilson and now Geno Smith for like the past 12 years, I love both of those guys, but man, they take a lot of sacks. Michael Penix Jr., that's a breath of fresh air, man. He gets the ball out. And, tonight he wasn't getting the ball to the right spots. But I think I look at him and I say, he's got a high ceiling. He might fall into our laps at 16. I would take him. If he's off the board, I would not take Bo Nix at 16. You know what I mean? I would
Yeah,
not take if JJ McCarthy is available, I wouldn't take him. I'd take an offensive lineman. But if Penix is available, I'm taking Michael Penix.
yeah. And speaking of JJ McCarthy, yeah, he didn't play great.
No,
10,
he bad game.
10 for 18, 140. Not, I mean, and he was 4 for 4 to start the game. So he only had 6 completions in the last, 35 minutes of that game. So
Yeah.
he didn't play great at all. Some stats to look at, just going back to the game here. Did Michigan outplay Washington Huskies today? That question is obviously yes.
Yeah.
But again, back to my point, I don't think it was a 21-point deficit when you
No.
watch the game. Total yards 301 to 440. Huskies, Michigan. Passing yards, Huskies had more with 255 compared to Michigan's 140. And this is the big one, though. Huskies with only 46 rushing yards. And Levi, you want to take a crack at how many rushing yards the Michigan Wolverines had?
Got to be over 200.
Go another digit, Levi. It's
3. Oh
303
my. Wow.
compared to our 46. And that's the game right there.
Yeah.
When you keep looking at it, both teams struggled on third down. Two for
Oh, yeah.
14. 2 for 14 for the
It was
Huskies.
miserable on third down. I mean,
Miserable.
I
Two for
couldn't
14.
believe that.
And from the Michigan, not much better. Actually, not better at all. 1 for 10. And then on fourth down, 2 for 5 and 0 for 1. Total plays, Washington actually had more offensive plays than the Michigan Wolverines, 71 to 57. Both teams punted 5 times. Michigan was the more penalized team, 45 compared to the Huskies, 30. Another big stat here, interceptions 2 compared to the Michigan Wolverines 0, and time of possession was about as even as you could expect, 30 minutes and 43 seconds for the Washington Huskies and 29-17 for the Wolverines. So again, these stats kind of show outside of the rushing yards stat, they're all pretty similar. This game was closer than the score paints the picture. Not as much of a blowout as some may believe it was.
Yeah, absolutely. And my takeaway about that is the committee got it right. These are the two best teams in the country. These were the two teams that deserved to play. I know people were mad Georgia didn't get in. I know people were annoyed that Florida State didn't get in. Some people were annoyed about the seeding for Texas, Alabama, but ultimately, these are the two best teams in the country. So I was very glad to see that this was a good game. I mean, the score makes it look like this is a bad game, but up until 5 minutes left, this was a good game. And I don't know what the viewership numbers are, but I'm assuming that this game was being viewed by a lot of people because this was an excellent football game. I love defense. I'm a big defensive football guy. I don't like shootouts as much. I think shootouts can get kind of boring. I thought this game was a really great watch. Unfortunately, our state was not able to get the win. Um, but even still, man, the Huskies, they had an amazing season. 14-1, reeling off 4 straight wins as underdogs. That is very impressive. I believe it was 8 wins in one score games, 8-0 in one score games. Ultimately, though, last game of the season, couldn't pull it out.
And it
Michigan
hurts.
was the better team.
It hurts. It hurts because you don't know if the Huskies will get back here. I don't know if they'll get
Yeah.
back here in my lifetime. And that's the simple truth. The Huskies, they'll be good for a while, but being this good, it's really rare.
Yeah.
I mean, this opportunity will not come around for quite a long time if I had to guess. Maybe you get to a semifinal in the next 5 or 10 years. You might scratch a championship appearance, but you just don't know. And that's what makes this game even more, it's what made this game so exciting because no one really expected it as a Washington fan. But it also made this game so heart-wrenching when, it was the slow demise of the Huskies offense too. It's just absolutely killer. Michael Penix, though, you played a great year. And obviously you're not watching this video, but if you were, I would say don't take this too hard. I really hope you have a
Yeah.
great NFL career. You played great. Michigan Wolverines was a tough test. The offensive line didn't play great. And hey, you didn't play your best football game, but it is what it is. Shrug it off. You gave the Huskies a 14-0 Sugar Bowl winning season, won the Pac-12, beat the Washington State Cougars in the Apple Cup, beat Oregon twice. So this season does not go without being noticed just because they lost in the championship game. And kudos to the Huskies. But yeah, this is a heart-wrenching one because it may be a very long time until the Washington Huskies find themselves in the college football national championship again.
Yeah. And with this loss, Seattle, it has now officially been 3.5 years since the city of Seattle has won a title. Drew, do you know who that last team was?
3.5 years. Uh, I don't know. I'll go Sounders.
Sounders won it 4 years ago. 2020, the Seattle Storm
Okay.
won the WNBA. So since the Storm in 2020, Seattle has been championship less, and that drought likely will continue for a little bit longer. I know the Sounders probably are the best chance to break that drought in 2024. I thought the Huskies were going to break it. I really did. I thought tonight was going to be the night. If you guys saw my videos, I predicted 3 straight videos that the Huskies would win. And turns out I can be wrong sometimes.
I did predict it.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for following along this journey. It's been fun. We'll be back soon. If you like this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And this was the NW Sportscast. So long, Husky fans.